Bobby, can you give us a rundown of the history behind your shop? From my understanding, you're a multi-generational shop. How did it get started?
Absolutely. At Liberty Fleet Solutions, we have a rich history, 35 plus years, but there was a lot of pitfalls along the way. We can dive a lot more into the details as we go.
Today's guests are Bobby Chambers, Product Support Specialist, and Bob Chambers, General Manager at Liberty Fleet Solutions. Based in Fredericksburg, Virginia, Liberty has over 30 years of experience in heavy-duty diesel repair and has recently leaned into the niche market of fire trucks and EMS vehicles.
I really don't care what industry you're in. It is 10 times easier to take a poorly run business than it is to start from zero.
I've worked with some of the best technicians that were horrible employees. So that brings up a good topic. Are you doing any kind of testing or evaluation before you hire? How do you determine what a good candidate is for you?
Right now, we're doing a personality test. We're giving everybody the Working Genius assessment. If you haven't heard about it, it's been helpful for us. Costs $20 or something like that. And it really shows how they're going to work in the team environment. It's something that I would like to talk about in more detail. I think one thing we should talk about is the real estate. We believe in owning the real estate, and I think that people should hear that message.
I 100% agree with the real estate. The business is the means to the end, but the end is the real estate. For me, it always has been. The business itself is way too much work.
We dive into topics like making tough decisions, their shift from working on fire trucks, and the wisdom from Bob of his 30 plus years of owning a shop. Welcome to Diesel Stories, a podcast that dives deep into the world of heavy-duty repair, exploring the challenges, triumphs, and innovations shaping the industry. My name is Peter Cooper. Welcome Bob and Bobby Chambers with Liberty Fleet Solutions. Bobby, can you give us a brief rundown of what you guys do and kind of the history behind your shop?
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. So here at Liberty Fleet Solutions, we have a rich history, 35 plus years. Currently today we have a staff of 12 technicians. We operate out of one location with several mobile trucks. We primarily service fleet customers, on-road vehicles. We like to say from Kia to Kenworth some days, but that gives you an idea of what we work on. Anything that moves on the road. These days we do kind of stay away from heavy equipment. And we've really leaned into the niche market of fire trucks and EMS. That's a brief overview of our journey. We can dive a lot more into the details as we go.
And tell me the history behind your shop. From my understanding, you're a multi-generational shop. How did it get started?
I'll let Bob start with that one.
My wife and I were both born and raised in the northern panhandle of West Virginia up near Pittsburgh. And at the time we were entering the work world, the unemployment up in that part of the country was 16, 15, 20%, and they all thought it was normal back in the 1980s because the steel mills and the chemical plants and the auto industry was shutting down. So we ended up moving to Northern Virginia. I went to work for about a year and a half for a construction company. Actually, it was two different construction companies. And one day I went to work and they told us the company was closing down. And if I wanted a job next week, I was going to have to go find another one. So I came home and told my wife that I guess I was going to have to find enough side work to keep me busy because I really didn't want to go find another job. So anyway, we started the journey of finding enough work to keep us busy. Was literally how it got started. And over the next 30 years, there was so many iterations. I suppose at one point we built it to where there was two locations. We were actually a Bobcat equipment dealer, and we did Freightliner. We were an associate dealer for Freightliner trucks and Cummins engines. We worked on a lot of trucks, and being in Northern Virginia, the construction industry was huge. The people that we chased after liked to work on construction and mining equipment, so we did a lot of construction, a lot of mining equipment. Mining meaning sand and gravel and crushed stone, not coal and other things. But anyway, I spent the next 30 years doing that. And I don't know how much more details you want. for any of that.
So it sounds like you were basically forced into this initially.
Yeah, I guess. It wasn't like it was some grand plan to build this company, that's for sure. It was a way to make a living and keep food on the table.
And that happens. I mean, that's how I got thrust into running my business full time. It was 2008, and I was working heavy highway. I was actually a crane mechanic, and 2008 happened, and they said, "Well, we're laying everybody off."
Well, so our 2008, literally in June or July, we closed on purchasing the Bobcat franchise from the company that had it. And in September of 2008, everything that we bought decreased in value by about 50%. And then we spent the next 3 or 4 years trying to at least get back to where we could get out of it with our shirts, and which is ultimately what we did. But yeah, that was I remember 2008 well.
Yeah, I think it changed a lot of things in industry as a whole. And speaking of change, so Bobby, tell me about how did you make that shift from working on equipment to trucks, and what drove you to that decision?
There's a lot of factors. I think the primary factor, and Dad mentioned it a little bit, is the people that we've surrounded ourselves with. In the early days, there were a lot of equipment mechanics working here, and friends bring in their friends and that sort of thing. Over the years, we slowly had less equipment mechanics. Yeah, we had a shop foreman, shop manager that didn't love equipment, didn't didn't recruit more equipment technicians. When I took over the company, I would say we were probably 80% on-road vehicles, 20% off-road vehicles. The second factor that's worth mentioning is I believe and I feel that the equipment companies, the major brands, Caterpillar, John Deere, even Case and Agco and some of the other ones, they have done a better job of retaining their customers, bringing the service work back to their own shops, and convincing customers that they're the only ones that have the information, that have the technology to talk to them. And they've done a better job of that than the truck industry has. So what we noticed was we were getting off-brand equipment, black market equipment, old equipment that had no support and hard to find parts. So it felt like it was becoming more and more of a struggle. So we eventually made the decision to step back from it. It wasn't easy. It was a little bit. It was in the name. It was Liberty Equipment. We started by fixing bulldozers, so it was a little weird to take that out of it. But I'm very glad we did it. And Liberty Fleet Solutions has a new ring to it, and we focus on managing customers' trucks.
So that's an interesting story. You actually changed the business so much you had to change the name.
Yeah, eventually. Yep. We eventually did. We felt like we needed to change the name. As we still got phone calls. I mean, it's been 2008. We had Bobcats, and we would still get phone calls. Hey, I want to rent a skid steer. Like we don't have skid steers. We don't really even want to fix them anymore. We gotta change the name. It was confusing to people.
I would like to add another layer to that whole
Yeah.
change the equipment thing. And you mentioned 2008. Well, 2007 was a gigantic year in emissions standards changing in the truck world. The truck world completely fell apart because the most major player in the truck world, for lack of a better term, went down the wrong road in emissions and survives to this day only because they threw the "you can't survive without our manufacturing capacity" to the federal government.
And we're referring to Navistar?
We are absolutely referring to
Yeah.
Navistar. So the entire truck world changed. Their ability to service their aftermarket customers, there was a real lull in what they could do and the local service work to their customers. That the equipment dealerships didn't struggle with that same part of that emission stuff that was thrust upon everybody. So the
Yeah, 'cause
equipment dealers
the-
got stronger, the truck dealers got weaker.
Right. And the equipment dealers didn't have to deal with that initially because the
Well,
off-road
absolutely. They got to learn
was
from
so much
everybody
delayed.
else.
Yeah.
They got to learn from
Well,
everybody else's mistakes. I mean, Caterpillar, not only did they tried to bail out Navstar.
right. Well, those two had been in bed for years, all the way back to the Huey injection system. They had been in bed, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I dealt with International a lot in that time frame, and up until the point that International basically went bankrupt, they still tried to convince everybody they had the right technology and everybody else was doing it wrong.
Right. And Caterpillar put out their own truck for what, about a year or 2 years before they said, "This is nuts.
Yeah.
We are out
Yeah,
of here."
their own truck that was really an International and nobody claimed it, including Cat. Go to a
Yeah,
Cat dealer and try to get parts for a Cat truck.
yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, to hear stories for some of I've got some good friends that are service managers for Carter Machinery, which is our local Cat dealer, and yeah, I mean, it was a disaster, but those outside things that had nothing to do with what Bobby or myself or anybody else was doing had a huge effect on how that world changed for us.
Well, and I think that's a valid point for anybody watching this or listening is that I think some of the most prolific, most successful business owners are not afraid to change. They can look at the world and they can look at markets and say, we need to go this way because this is what's coming. And almost to the point where somebody sometimes will call them psychic. Like you must be psychic that you saw this coming. It's like I don't always believe that. I think sometimes they're the ones that just step back and listen. They're not so set in their ways that they're afraid to change.
Well, I am not speaking for Bobby. He can say what he wants to say on this subject, but I'm going to tell you, for me, I can absolutely tell you it was not some revelation or thought out process. It's we have to survive. We have to pay the bills next week. We can't keep doing what we're doing. We won't be here.
Yeah, it's not that we're psychic or we see it coming. We see a gap and we try to fill it. It's a need in the service industry, and if you can meet that need, you can build a profitable market around that.
And it's doable. I built my first shop initially. It was built on 100% working on buses. And why did I pick buses? Because I owned a bus company and my competition they couldn't never do their runs. So they always had to call me to come fill in for them. And one day I finally just said, hey, would you just like me to fix your bus for you? Oh yeah, that would be awesome. We can't find anybody to work on buses. So that's how I started my shop, was because exactly that. There was a need and I realized real quickly there was more money in fixing stuff than there was in owning it.
Well, probably a good segue for your fire department,
So
or for your fire EMS and fire stuff, because that
with
was
that,
exactly what
these
happened to you.
changes that you've made, I know that you've kind of gone down a path that's probably a little unique because people are scared of it because they're so different. And I understand now that you're working on fire trucks. How did you get into working on fire trucks? It's pretty specialized.
Absolutely. So I completely recognize that they're unique and complex trucks with very complex systems. Fortunately for us, we came from that equipment world. So a lot of the system, talking hydraulic systems, hydraulic cylinders, ladders and pumps, and this kind of stuff was not foreign to us. I would say even in the regular day to day trucks that we work on the complex trucks. We work on the high rail trucks for CSX. We work on the crane trucks that are setting shingles on the roof. We work on um, any type water trucks that water trucks for construction sites and VDOT and snowplow trucks and all the complex systems. So I think we were able to remove a lot of that fear from our minds pretty quickly. We also have a decent fab shop in house. We have a lathe, we have a mill, we have welders. We rebuild hydraulic cylinders in house. So there's a lot of aspects that we can do that people would traditionally shy away from. So what one day, I'd say about 18 months ago, one of the fire chiefs from the local community that I grew up in actually came to our shop. And he wasn't the first one that I'd come across along the way, but he actually came and sought us out and walked through the shop and said, hey, I have a need. And I want to know if you guys are willing to work on these trucks. And the industry really respects these certifications. Are you willing to go get certified? At that point, we jumped on it with both feet. Four of us went down to Florida, went through a week-long training class and got the F3 certification. And F3 is the certification for the fire truck pump. And you realize real quick in the industry that the pump is the most important part. If a fire truck doesn't pump water, it's not a fire truck. It's just a big
It's a
red.
really expensive bus.
It's just a big red bus. Yeah, that's right. That's right. With a tank full of water. So we got the F3 certification, and it is a need in the industry. We did not, we were actually scared to get into it too fast because they are such critical vehicles, and we only had a few of us certified to work on them. We just reached out to the three local departments that we knew, the town I grew up in, the city we operate out of, and the local army base. And we had 3, 4, 5, 6 trucks, consistently generating revenue. So we just kept leaning into that. We've got, I think, 12 or 13 certifications now within the shop. I'm planning on going to the FTTC conference in September in Michigan. I'm gonna probably take a couple more tests myself. And honestly, the word of mouth is spreading. We're not even working hard to sell it. We actually had to go through the federal contracting process. We had a contract to fix 3 trucks for the local Army base. And then last week, the Marine Corps base reached out to us. And this week we got contacted by Fort Belvoir. So the news is spreading, and these guys are pretty desperate to find other avenues to get this work done on these specialty trucks.
So what does that
Uh,
involve? Working on fire trucks. You say you're working on the pumps. What does that mean to someone who's not familiar with working on fire trucks?
right. So a lot of shops can work on different aspects of these trucks. I think I know what we're trying to do that's unique in the industry is be as close to a one-stop shop as they can get. We have a background from Cummins. We have a background from Allison. We have some guys that are knowledgeable on pumps. We have guys that are knowledgeable on hydraulics. We can change your tires. There's really not a system on those trucks. We're not certified on ladders yet. We're not certified on foam yet. But our goal is to be able to tackle any system on the truck. And they really don't have that. I see these guys, they're taking it to Cummins to get engine work done. They're taking it to a tire shop, getting their tires done. They're taking it, all over town to get different things done. And I guess to answer the other part of that question, fire trucks are required to have the pump tested annually and anytime a major repair is done. So if you have replaced an injector, a turbo, even a radiator, you're supposed to recertify the pump on that truck. So we have ordered the pump test equipment. It's due in to our shop about December. So we're going to be able to do that in-house as well, and go around to all these localities on an annual basis and perform the pump test for them. That's a huge part of the industry as well.
So what it sounds like, Bobby, is you're a one-stop shop for the fire truck. And it sounds like fire trucks and municipalities are probably the same as most other fleets, where they just want a place where it's easy to spend money.
Yeah, yeah, and that works both ways, but it's not without its challenges. I'm sure you've experienced it before, but some technicians don't necessarily want to do all those types of things. So it's a challenge to keep all those pieces, the pay rates, all the different things that go with that. The guy that I trust to change the injectors is not willing to change tires. It's
That's
um
true.
he might, but he wouldn't be happy about it.
Right.
Yeah.
You always have those oddball guys. I'll never forget one of the best techs I ever worked with. And this was a master tech, meaning he was the highest guy in the shop. You could literally go out to him and be like, "Hey, we got a road call. I need you to go change a brake chamber." And he would get excited to go change a brake chamber.
Right.
But
Let
he
me
was
do some
weird.
gravy work.
Yeah, he was not normal. He was not the normal tech. Like, a lot of guys would see that's beneath them. But you're right. It is, as your shop evolves and grows and you become more specialized, you do run into that where they do feel it's beneath them. And honestly, financially, it kind of is. If you're
Yes.
paying a master level tech to change a tire,
Yes.
something's hit the fan.
Yes. I can't really afford that. He's paid way too well. Yeah.
Right. I think
Yeah.
that's a
I'm
valid
only
point too with a lot of shop owners, is if if they sat down and thought about what their time is worth and they really calculated it, they would start to ask themselves, is it really worth me jumping in the service truck and chasing after stuff? Or should I be in the office trying to figure out why I have to keep getting in the service truck?
That's right. But to your point, I still find it fun when I get to do it sometimes.
Oh, I used to love it. I mean, I would come home. There were days, as my shop grew and you have these headaches and you hit roadblocks. And I would tell my wife, life was just so much easier when it was me in a service truck. Like,
Yeah.
I went to work, I came home, I didn't have to deal with people that way.
Yeah.
And I figured out real quick, business is easy if you don't have to deal with customers and employees.
Yeah. Don't leave out the vendors, Peter.
But unfortunately, without employees and customers, we don't usually have a business.
Yep. That's right.
So that brings up a good topic. Tell me about hiring
Mhm.
staff, managing staff. You guys have been at this a long time. How are you able to stay staffed? I mean, with 12 techs, you're above the average for a normal shop, for an average shop. You're not a small operator anymore. How are you sourcing people? Like, where are you getting techs from? How are you keeping them?
I don't think anybody's going to be surprised to hear me say it's a struggle every day. We're never where we want to be. We just found out we have one that's leaving and moving back across the country, going home where he was originally from. And you can't fault a guy for doing that. But he was a young guy we poured a lot into, and you do that for decades, and it starts to wear on you. Or do it for 5 years, do it for 5 minutes, it starts to wear on you. But we've taken a lot of different approaches. We've found more and more that the shotgun approach is not super helpful. When I say shotgun approach, I'm saying, blasting every job board, blasting multiple different job postings on Indeed and just trying to rack up a giant stack of resumes rarely gets us anybody that we're excited about or are thrilled that we hired. So we are learning, even today, we're learning to take a more rifled approach. And some of that's advice from my dad. He's got stories about guys that he sought out and chased after and eventually convinced to come work for him. So we are taking a more rifled approach to that. We do have a headhunting. I don't know if that's what they want to be called, but job placement agency that is actively seeking out employees for us. And myself, when I'm out and about, visiting customers, we have a sales lady that's out and about visiting customers from time to time, and we're on the lookout for that. She came back today, super excited. She went to visit a customer's location, and it was a government entity. He said, I get to retire out of this in October, but I still want to work, and I live in your town. And so we're just keeping our ear out for those kind of opportunities and doing our best to hire for cultural fit. We had a guy come in yesterday for an interview, and he may not be the best technician in the world. He may not turn 50 hours a week, but I was excited because I could tell he would fit our culture, and we wanted him to work here. So I know he's getting the job offer.
I think that's something that's important. So many shop owners hire out of desperation and they don't look at a situation and say, is this person going to last? They just look at him and say, oh, great, I got a tech. He can start working tomorrow.
Yeah.
And all too often that person becomes more expensive than the offer. In other words, they can come in and be very detrimental to the culture. So that is one thing I really think it's important for shop owners is to sit down and really document what makes them special. And one of the things I work with, I ask shop owners all the time blatantly, why would someone want to come work for you?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if you don't have an answer for that, you need to
Right.
find one.
Right. Absolutely. I would also throw it out there for everybody that's listening. One of the things we have held very fast about is, the drug testing policy, especially when it comes to, marijuana. It's legal, but we still test for it. It's still a federally regulated substance. You can't,
Mine's been pretty steady for the last little bit.
you can't be smoking pot and driving a truck, and we have to test drive these trucks. So I feel like There's moments where we've been frustrated because there's a lot of guys come in and interview and don't go take the drug test. We never hear back from them, and we find out they're working down the street. But I actually had a newer employee tell me just yesterday afternoon. He told me a story. The employer he was at before, he was like, "Yeah, they were drinking on the job. Like that's why I was looking for something different. That's we're gonna hold fast to that. We're not gonna bend on that.
So that's a valid point. I think a lot of shop owners don't understand that their outward appearance makes a difference on who they attract. An example that I give is if you have a dirty, disorganized shop, you will attract dirty, disorganized employees. And if you have a very clean shop, a very organized shop, and you have standards, you will drive out those types of employees that are looking for chaos.
Yeah. Interesting you say that. I would say I've had 2 technicians in the last week. I won't, theorize on what they were trying to accomplish by telling me this, but I've had 2 technicians in the last week tell me they turned down better job offers because they didn't wanna work there. Because it was an ugly place, because it was a nasty place, because they didn't have tools, because they didn't have trucks, decent service trucks, whatever. Yeah.
Well, and that's something too that I think all owners have to be realistic about the fact that all of these guys probably have 2 or 3 job offers at any given time. I actually had a technician one time that would go around and everybody thought he was the most desirable guy in town because he always had a job offer. Till the day I ran across his resume on Indeed and he had just updated it. So I sent him a question and asked him if he wanted to apply to work for our shop. But it's true. I mean, all of these guys, if they're good, people know who they are. The dealers know who your best techs are. They're trying to steal them too. And that's exactly it. When you know what makes you special, when you know why people want to work for you, you could be a lot more secure in the fact that they're not going to steal them because they don't, those other shops are just trying to throw money at a problem and fix it. And the problem is they have a really crappy operation. So they just assume if I pay somebody more, they'll come work for me. And they're right. For the most part, they'll get a couple of guys that'll come. But for the most part, they're just trying to compensate for something.
Yeah, I can sleep well at night knowing that these guys actually wanna be here. That's why they're here. They have other
Right.
options. Yeah.
And that goes back to that whole question is you really need to know why people want to work for you. And if you don't know, just ask your employees. I tell shop owners all the time, the best thing you can ever do with an employee, have a real conversation with them, is get them out of the shop. Take them to lunch,
Yeah.
do something where you get them off site. You'd be surprised how much they will open up and tell you things that might change the way you view things.
Absolutely agree. I've had some of my best employee engagement opportunities go into these trainings for the fire trucks. We're traveling together, going out to dinner together, hotel rooms together, and we're just hanging out talking.
Well, and it may help owners too, because now that employee can see you as a real human. You're not just the guy that sits in the office. You are a real person. You have real things that you have to deal with. The same struggles they deal with every day. I think it's something to be said for building that trust and that relationship with your employees. Because let's face it, things are going to get hard. They're going to have a bad day. They're going to have something that comes back. And what keeps those guys from quitting is knowing that they have that support, that there's someone there that cares about them or even knows who they are, that they are a real person. They're not just an employee. And I think that's been lost with our ever growing shops in the way, consolidation is going. Every shop keeps getting bigger, especially dealership networks, that we've lost that personal touch with our employees.
Yeah, and I guess, it's more of a story, but it seems like a fine place to share it. We had sometimes some really challenging situations with employees can be incredible opportunities to come together and be a family and do something more meaningful. We had an employee that became disabled this year, and a lot of organizations, a lot of owners would have filled that seat, and they wouldn't have been wrong to do so. It is a business. You have to make sure that the business is successful, and on some level, you couldn't say that that was wrong. But we didn't. We held out, hope that there was recovery for her. She wanted to return to work. She was fully paralyzed. We ended up even building a front desk that was accommodating for her situation, and she attempted to come back. She was back with us for about a month, but she couldn't maintain a normal level of activity, and she was exhausted. She felt like she was letting people down, and ultimately she's going for full-time disability, and it's heartbreaking to see that tragic story. But it was an opportunity for the team to come together, come around somebody, help somebody, and try to make it work, and realize that we are family and we're a business owner that cares about people and believes the best in people. I think it sends a whole different signal if you're just really quick to fill that seat.
Well, and I think a lot of business owners, if they can hold on, I've done that too with employees that have had to take time off and they've had to leave for a while. Um, and not everybody sees that signal that you send to your people that they are a little bit irreplaceable. It goes a long ways when you're willing to put that into it. In the same way, you were willing to make these accommodations, whether you had to do that legally or not. You did it because you wanted this person to be able to be here because you wanted
Oh,
them
sure.
there.
Yeah.
And I think
Yes.
that's not something that business owners think about. It's kind of like with social media posts. I tell business owners, look, 20 to 30% of everything that you do on social media needs to be about why this is a great place to work. Like, so many business owners put so much effort into advertising and acquiring customers and that image, but they never think about how much money they've spent getting employees and the fact that there are other ways to get people and convince them to work there. Because let's just face it, in this modern day and age, they know who you are. They've done research, and if you don't have a website, you don't have a social media page, and you don't exist that way, you are going to have a hard time getting the better employees because those people are, and that's the ones you want. You want the ones that are smart and they're thorough and that look at the whole picture instead of just taking the offer based on the dollar amount.
Yeah. To your point, I oftentimes in interviews ask the candidate how they found out about us. What did they find when they Googled us? I know they Googled us. They didn't come to an interview without checking us out on Google, looking at our website, our Facebook page, maybe. Um, I rarely ask customers that anymore, but I do ask the interview candidates that often. Yeah.
And I think it's severely overlooked.
Yeah.
When we're trying to hire people, we think that it's just about the money, and it's not. It's about
Right.
environment. And I know so many business owners, this has become a bad word, work-life balance. Employees still have that mindset. They still want to know that you value their time as much as, your time is valued. And I think that putting that effort into the way your presence is really important into hiring technicians. Are you doing any kind of testing or evaluation before you hire? Like, are you doing a personality test? Are you doing aptitude tests? How do you determine what a good candidate is for you?
Yeah, a little bit. We've talked about the aptitude test, and it's something that I would like to explore in more detail. Right now, we're doing I guess I would consider it a personality test. We're giving everybody the working genius assessment.
Okay.
If you haven't heard about it, it's been helpful for us. Um, it's a simple, maybe cost $20 or something like that. You send them an email link and they answer questions, and it really shows how they're going to work in the team environment. It shows what part of the work they thrive in and what part of the work frustrates them. I don't need to take time to explain the whole thing, but we've done it long enough now that we've started to kind of have a benchmark there and kind of have some ideas what traits work well in different positions. And what team members with certain traits work well together, those types of things. It's been helpful for us. Yep.
So one tip I have for shop owners or any business owner for that matter that decides to go down the path of testing, and that is test your current employees.
We did that. We
If you,
tested
yeah, if
everybody.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you test your best employee and you get that answer and you say, okay, now I want 10 of this,
Yeah.
now you've really established what good is and what bad is. And now you have the ability to say, when you see that, you know it. And that's what I always ask shop owners is if you haven't established what a good technician is, then how do you know you have one when they're sitting across from you in an interview?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It gets really hard to nail that down if you haven't really quantified what it is you're looking for. And I
Yeah.
know that seems like an alien concept for a shop owner. It's like, well, obviously I want a tech that could fix trucks. But I've worked with some of the best technicians that were horrible employees.
Yeah.
Like, they were just not good people to have in your organization.
Yeah. It makes me think of the basic EOS concept. GWC, get it, want it, have the capacity. What you're describing is somebody can have the capacity, but if they don't get it, if they don't understand why we do what we do, and if they don't want to do it, the best tech in the world might not perform at all.
Well, and you'll find too that technician, and you may have it, and shops in general may have a technician currently that no longer fits. I think I'm a true believer that relationships are like a lot of things in life. As things change, you may outgrow a relationship.
Yeah.
And I've had technicians where we've had to have conversations and said, look, you are a great technician.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're the right person for us anymore. And I've helped them find another placement. Like, I mean, I knew that they would be a better fit at another environment, and we would help them on that path. But I think so many shop owners have to look at it from a holistic approach of what is the impact of keeping or even hiring the wrong person? What will that do to the shop? Because I've had people after they left, other technicians will come up to us and say, we really wish you would have done that a long time ago.
Yeah, very normal.
And I think it's the same way with standards.
Yeah.
If you have set standards, the technician has the ability to evaluate at any given time, am I doing good or not?
Yeah, one point we kind of breezed over, and I'll circle back to, is all employees want to know that the work has meaning. And I think we keep circling back to the fire trucks, but it's been really powerful here to see that work is motivating. The example I like to use a lot is, if we're working on Mrs. Jones' RV tonight and it doesn't get done, she's gonna miss out on a few hours at the beach tomorrow, right? Or at her lake house. And it doesn't feel that important. But when you're working on the fire truck that responds to your family's home or your kid's school or whatever the case may be, you find importance in that. You find meaning in that. And it just motivates people to want to do a better job and feel good about accomplishing the task.
And I think that, I have a good story about that. So I never knew that my team could work so hard in such adverse conditions. It was a couple of years ago now. We had a cold snap come through Iowa, and it was -20, and it was the week of Christmas. So I think Christmas was towards the latter part of the week. And I never thought my people could produce so much. But they all knew that, hey, we had to get these guys, home so they could make it home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And when they all had a purpose, when they had something to rally around, it was amazing what they could accomplish. Like, it just still, and this was years ago, blows my mind how it was like they found another gear and they went faster. Like, they accomplished things that no one thought was possible in such a short amount of time. And it's because they had purpose. And I think that gets lost a lot in our modern age of where and we all are, we got to be honest. We're focused on revenue. We're focused on money. We have to be able to keep the doors open. But how often do shop owners really stop and think, what is our purpose? Like, what are we trying to do here? And why do we do what we do the way we do it? So tell me about after hour service. You have service trucks. It sounds like. And how does that work for you? How do you staff that? How do you get guys to run service trucks after hours and odd weekends and things like that?
Yeah, great timing to ask that question. We started, I think, last April, and opened up what we call second shift, 2:30 to 11. The plan behind it and the idea behind it was 2 service trucks, actually teams of technicians. We wanted 4 technicians, 2 service trucks, and scheduled maintenance work. We wanted to go out to a customer's lot, line up. Yeah, we had, FedEx would line up 7 or 8 trucks. You do DOTs on all the trucks. Let's say Equipment Share would line up 3 or 4 trucks who are doing, PMs, tires, brakes, basic maintenance stuff. We weren't expecting these guys to be high caliber diagnostic, wire chasing technicians. And it started out fairly successful. There was a lot of pitfalls along the way. Some of the most obvious pitfalls being, there's little access to parts. So it has to be very planned and coordinated. If you're out there 9 o'clock at night and you realize you got the wrong fuel filter, you don't have a lot of options. We had leadership challenges. It was really hard to find solid leadership that wanted to work those hours. I could go into several stories there, and we actually had a guy that was stealing from us at one point and basically taken our calls and given them to another company. So there was, a lot of challenges we discovered. Let's see, the team dynamic ultimately struggled, and that was decision we made yesterday. We've actually suspended our second shift for right now, and it was due to the team dynamic. There were some team members that really lost trust in each other, and when you have people working different shifts in different areas, you kind of open that door wide up. If the trust isn't there, man, it falls apart fast. The other guys would come in the next morning and complain about what did or didn't get done last night. And when we lost the employee I mentioned earlier became disabled. Um, we lost some of our what I would call our proactive nature. And second shift to be successful really requires proactivity. The planning, the organization, the contacting the customers, the scheduling of the maintenance, tracking it in full bay. We lost the capacity to do some of that, so we really just had to accept it and suspend it for now. I guess one other point to add to that, I, I can't answer any question without going back to fire trucks, but the fire truck customers don't seem to care about second shift. Fire truck is critical vehicle 24/7. They don't really care when you're going to fix it. They're not asking us for those extended hours like some of the fleet customers are.
Well, and I think that's a valid point that, you have to do what works for you. You can't be afraid to change. You can't be afraid to try things. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I guarantee you that you learn something from that experience.
A lot. Yeah.
And I think it re-solidifies too that you have to have a strong culture and have to have strong leadership or shops don't work. I mean, I've done some of the consulting I do with shop owners is trying to understand why are techs leaving. We dive into it, and good majority of the time is they leave because there's not clear leadership. And even if owners think, well, I'm a strong leader, we do well. Yes, you do well. What about the other people in your organization? Are they
Yeah.
true leaders? Or are you masking it because you cover it up, because you're there all the time? And I think a good way to look at that is anytime an owner goes on vacation, take a look at what the shop's like when you get back, and that'll show you where the holes are, anything that's missing or that you need to work on for them, meaning what do they need to be better? Because it's tough. It's tough being a leader in this industry and having to deal with all of that and then throw nights into it. And it is so tough running a night shift.
Yep. And to your point about stepping out for a while, I did that this summer. I was actually not in the shop for almost a total of almost 8 weeks. And I didn't like some of the results. And my team's they're very aware now of what I came back and what I found when I came back that I didn't like. So,
Well, and sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you
yeah.
have to really step back and take a look at things,
Yeah.
and have
I,
perspective.
and I said it to one of my friends this morning. It's similar to what you just said. If I'm here all the time, I may be able to mask some of those problems or head them off before they become problems. It's just like a truck. How frustrating is it when you get that customer that brings the truck in every time they think they have the slightest problem? Dude, just once in a while, just let it break. Like sometimes it is way easier to fix it if you just run it a little longer. Find out what's broke, tackle it, fix it, and we'll all be better off in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of goes back to EOS. They have philosophy IDS, identify, discuss, solve. And it's pretty hard to identify a problem if it's not there yet. And sometimes too, that's an example of owners don't even know. They have like this sixth sense. They have what I call a gut feeling. They could just walk into a situation or walk to a truck and they know what's wrong with it. That's great that you have that, but that doesn't do your people any good.
Right.
So
Right.
you really have to solidify things and build systems that work. And I think that's the hardest part of an owner is being able to step back and saying, I'm no longer a doer, I'm a leader. And leading means you've got to build systems. And what you're talking about, what you've gone through is, I think in some form about every shop goes through that, whether it's expanding or operating different hours, or even if they decide to work on something different and it doesn't work. But being able to have time to think and reflect on that and really learn from it is so important. Being able to have a takeaway.
So one thing I think would be, if I'm talking to young shop owners across the country or people in the industry, And I got my dad on the phone. I think one thing we should talk about is the real estate. We believe in owning the real estate, and I think that people should hear that message. And if Dad, you're still there and you want to speak to it, um, I'm very thankful that you believed in that, and I'm very thankful that you put the effort into buying a piece of ground and building this building that I'm sitting in. Um, a lot of shop owners, you struggle to find the resources and the time to tackle that task. 20, 30 years goes by really fast, and you've paid the rent, and that building could have been your retirement.
Actually, that's a very valid point. I have seen so many shops throughout the years, and I've even bought shops that they have an operation. It's a viable operation. And unfortunately, the real estate is worth more money than the business is. And we actually bought a shop like that. We bought a 55,000 square foot facility that had, 27 techs. And we paid less for the business than what the real estate was worth because the guy refused to sell it unless someone was going to run it as a shop, and no one would buy it as a shop. They all wanted just the real estate, but it is, and it's hard to do. But you're absolutely right. It's like the best savings account you can ever have if
Yeah.
you can buy your own shop. And I know it's hard. Not everybody can do it. Gosh, I've got clients in California that I don't think they would ever be able to buy their facility just because the real estate markets are hard. But if you ever have that ability, I tell people don't ever, ever walk away from that. Like that is life changing. And it's not something that's ever going to happen. You're not going to see it today. Like this is a 20, 30-year plan when you own real estate. And it is different. I mean, running real estate's a different kind of business, but it is, I can't emphasize enough how profitable it becomes long term.
The business is the ends to the means to the end, but the end is the real estate. For me, it always has been. I'm not sure where to go with that, but yeah, the business itself is way too much work.
How did you manage to buy the first one? How did you make it work?
The real story is I went to the bank and sat down with the loan officer, and we talked about a piece of property that we knew about. And he sat there and looked at me and he said, well, I'm not going to tell you we can't get this done. We might be able to get it done. But I have a friend that has got some property that he's looking to sell. And he connected the two of us. I think he connected me with 3 different people that was looking to sell a piece of property. And we ended up making a deal with one, and it was literally owner financed, and we just went from there. Funny part of that story is one of the other people that I talked to, and that 10 years later came back to me and said, I remember talking to you about this. We want to sell it now. You want to buy it? Absolutely. And it was, the 2 pieces of property were next door to each other. So it was actually really, good. Nice pieces of property.
That's really a good lesson. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. I know that so many business owners will say, well, that's not possible to get seller financed on real estate. Believe it or not, it happens more than you might think, especially with shops. If a shop owner is looking to expand and buy another shop, there's a lot of owners that are willing to seller finance. And it's a way to get into real estate deals and to business deals that most people think it isn't doable, but it is.
Oh, I would say I was just sitting here trying to think. 1, 2. I bet over the years I've bought more with owner financing than I ever have with bank financing. And I mean, this is a whole different subject from talking about shops, but and I know you can edit this out, so I guess I hope you do. I went back to we made the deal. We did what we said we were going to do for, I don't know, 10 years. And along during that period, the interest rates changed. So rather than go back to the folks and say, hey, look, we want to change interest rates, we actually went to a bank and got financing to do it at a way less interest rate. Well, when I made my phone call to the owner, we were the owners, the owner financiers, and said, hey, we want to pay you off. He said, you are not paying me off. You just tell me what the interest rate needs to be, and that's what it'll be. And we will not accept a check from you. Keep making your payments. And we actually carried that one through. He passed away. It went to his wife's. It was actually a partnership. One of them went to their wife's his estate, which was his wife. Then his wife passed away, went to his kids. I mean, we carried that payment down through 3 generations, or three family. I guess it wasn't generations, 2 generations, 3 family members. Yeah, it's absolutely possible, and I highly recommend it to anybody that's.
Well, and I think this is a good lesson in business and life in general, and that's that as shop owners, we would all love if our technician would come to us and say, "This is what's going on. This is what I need to stay," versus just leaving. And I think business is the same way. Instead of leaving a business situation or trying to find a way around it, just go to the person and say, "This is what I want." It would have Bob, it probably would have saved you a bunch of effort if you'd have just went to the guy in the first place and told him that.
Sure. Yeah, but the flip side to it is I already had the other place. I already had something worked out. So if it didn't work out, it still could work out, right?
True.
I think reading between the lines, what I see here is it's relational. And in our current culture, I think we've lost the idea that any type of financial transaction is relational. I mean, when was the last time you even went to the bank and met and talked to a bank teller face to face? Like we can do all these things so automated now. We think that, all the traditional mortgage lenders, it's just cookie cutters. But yeah, owner financing is very, very common. I was 100% of the debt that I have to my name right now is owner finance. It's very doable, very possible.
Yeah, you don't see that anymore. I know that growing up, I never knew this till years on that a family farm I grew up on was bought that way. It was seller financed, and you just don't hear about that much anymore.
I mean, I guess it depends on what world what circles you travel in, but I hear about it all the time. I really do hear about it all the time.
Well, another thing is too is, to what you're Bob, to build on what you said, a lot of it has to do with it's a tax thing. Like if they get this huge lump of money, then there's a tax ramification. So not everybody wants these
Well,
big payoffs because they
and I'll
understand that.
go. It's not only a tax thing; it's an investment thing. What else you gonna do with it?
Right.
Yeah. It's a John Maxwell principle. Maybe the answer to my own or my own thought process is there. You have to put the proximity principle, I believe, is what he calls it. You have to put yourself in proximity to people that do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, you always have to look up is what I call that. Also is relationships are something that you need to build before you need them. And I think too many people look at things as a transactional thing, so they wait until they need it. But it's like going to the bank. You never want to go to the bank when you need money. Go to the bank when you don't need money.
Oh, yeah.
And I think relationships are that way too.
Yeah, go to the bank when you need money. They'll laugh at you.
Yeah. I found it really easy to go get a line of credit when you didn't need it.
It's actually the only way you can get a line of credit. You got to prove to them you don't need it.
But I think relationships are the same way. You have to build relationships before you need them. Because if you wait to build a relationship when you need it, it's too late. And you can build a network. We sometimes call it the grapevine, where, I've got a guy for that. Like people would think I was crazy. They would call me up and tell me a problem. They're like, "Oh, I got a guy for that." They're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Oh, I know this guy. Well, let's call him. He'll take care of that for you." And life just becomes a lot less stressful when you have resources. And resources is not just money. Sometimes it's relationships.
It's always relationships. Yeah, knowing that guy.
And I think for me, a piece to understanding financing is understanding risk, right? And a bank is always going to see it risky. But if, for our example, if my dad is selling me a business, his risk is his outlook on risk is very different. Like he knows how to run the business. He doesn't want to do it anymore, but it's not that risky if something were to go sideways. He could survive that. But a bank would have no idea what to do with my business if something went sideways.
Right. And a bank only looks at it as assets. They don't have a blue sky value because they can't quantify that. Where an owner can very easily look at something and say, I understand the risk. I understand the person. And really, that's a good tip to any young techs out there or even middle-aged techs that, maybe the owner of your shop is retiring and that family doesn't want it. And that it's not on the market yet. Go ask him.
Mhm.
If that's what you want to do, just ask them. Ask them what their plan is. Like, what are they going to do? And they say, we don't know what we're going to do. And just tell them flat out, sell it to me. You'd be surprised how many guys will look at you and change their mind real quick when you ask them that.
they're not going to be offended. Don't be afraid to ask.
Right. And I know that too many people say that, but it's such, I mean, out of, I guarantee you the response is probably not going to be, hell no. It's probably going to be not today, but I think that's something we can do. And you're putting that idea in their head that that's something that you want to do. So if you're a technician and you want to be a shop owner, you may not have to go out and start from scratch and build it from scratch. You may be able to buy the one you already work for. And if the guy's willing to sell or finance, it would be amazing how much easier life is when you do that versus trying to start one from scratch. Because I know I started a shop from scratch from a gravel parking lot, and it was hard. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, going from 0 to 1 is the hardest step.
Yeah, it is 10 times easier to take a poorly run or even a well-run business than it is to start from 0. And I don't care. I really don't care what industry you're in.
Absolutely. Well, and I actually did that. So I started a shop from a gravel parking lot and grew it into a multi-million-dollar operation and did it in 6 years, and then went on to work with another organization and buy shops and turn them. And it was so much easier to turn a shop profitable than it was to start one from scratch. I mean, it was just, you talk about blood, sweat, and tears. Start a business from the ground up.
Yeah.
It is a tough job. Bob, thanks for your decades and years of input. I appreciate you being on with us today.
Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Diesel Stories. Be sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast platform and join us next time for more shop talk, insights, and stories from the diesel repair world.